Well, thank you for coming here. Good morning. And then I'm Seri Park. I'm assistant professor at Villanova University. And just to have some idea about the Villanova University, I would like to ask you, how many of you have heard about Villanova University? You, more than I thought. Well, it's located in the Philadelphia area. And this research was actually a collaboration of our MPO, which is Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, as well as it was part of like undergraduate research. And as Rob said, I did my study here at Irvine, so I feel like coming back home, and then it's really good, so thanks for coming here. And then today's topic that I'm gonna talk about it is the title as Identification of Congestion Factors. It's a case study with DVRPC operations data. Now, presentation outline per se is I just want to briefly review why we need this, as well as what was the setting, and then what we found out. And then I just want to mention that this is really a preliminary study. It started when we didn't really have access to the really good data set that you're going to see it later of today's session. But like we used kind of raw data and then make sure that what can we find out about the congestion? So just wanted to make sure that this is preliminary research, and then what are the remarks that we found, as well as where should we go? So the research need is basically, hey, what's going on the roadway? Having spent a lot of years here in Southern California, I know and I'm aware of like 4-5. It's really bad. And then going back to Philadelphia area, like Interstate 95 that runs from the Florida to the Maine, that is a huge corridor, but at the same time, it's always congested. So wherever you go, there's congestion. And we would like to know like what's happening, why is it there, and is there any observed patterns? Obviously, there's gonna be peak period, non-peak period, which is like crash related, but why is it happening? And what can we do? Like, is there any way to alleviate it? Is it a long-term plan as well as short-term plan? And then what has been done. And then we know that based on the FHWA study that about like 40%, that's because of bottlenecks, which clearly indicates that it's gonna be recurrent congestion. So that kind of ties into the control as well as long-range planning. So we kind of know what's going on in the nationwide. However, where I live, the greater Philadelphia area, this kind of study hasn't been really thoroughly reviewed. There have been a lot of study, like looking at the congestion bottleneck part, as well as interchange improvement studies here and there, but like a thorough study hasn't really been studied, and that's where DVRPCI, our MPO, as well as PennDOT, and then our university, we kind of like talk together. So that's the main part of today's presentation. And again, research needed that if you want to alleviate the congestion, you got to know where it's happening and then why. And that ties into our MPOs, like a transportation operation and planning strategy program, where they do need this kind of support, like identification as well as research results. And then we are also trying to have an integrated approach with our state Department of Transportation, which is PennDOT. So they do have regional operations plan, which was published in 2009, as well as DVRPC's transportation operations master plan within that region area. And we are hoping that our study will again support whatever their plan they have come up with, as well as for the future plan, which is gonna be 2040 vision that we have as long-range planning. And as Rob mentioned, the MAP 21, it is really emphasizing the reliability as well as sustainability through the congestion mitigation and air quality. So again, congestion is everywhere. It all ties into not only the roadway performance, but in the end, sustainable, which is one of my research areas as well as air quality environment. So in the end, that's the starting point, but it will be like have a huge impact to others as well. So just to give you some idea about like where the study setting is, that's the red dot, that's where the Philadelphia is. And you can see that it kind of joins with New Jersey, as well as up north, it's gonna be New York City, and then down, it's more like Baltimore, and then Washington, DC. So I wanna give you some idea of like what's going on in our study site. And the 95 is the one that runs from the Florida till up to the main. So those who are from the East Coast, you guys will probably know that I-95 is a huge corridor, pretty much a carbon copy of the Southern California. Here is like 405. So our research setting is the study site, it's going to be Interstate 95, and then we chose the exits from the 1 to 6, and the reason is because if you see here Route 322, it's not interstate or nothing like that, but still it carries a lot of traffic. And what's funnier here is that as you go through the north, that's where it's going to connect to the Philadelphia, and the south, obviously Delaware. And if you go further down this way, we do have a park where they have a soccer club. So a lot of times when these people, they hold the game, it really creates a huge congestion in that area. Not only that, I don't know if you can see here, this is a bridge, and then that's the one that connects to the New Jersey. And then New Jersey is known for the shore. So like in summer, like Memorial Day, like Labor Day, definitely this one here is jam-packed because of the attractive shoreline. So this is how the setting is. And you can see that how fuzzy it is with the roadway setting. So in the end, this segment is one of the segments that PennDOT is really looking into it and improve it because we know there are a lot of crash, there are a lot of congestion. So we say that, okay, well, this is going to be a really preliminary study. And let's begin from the area where it's really, there are a lot of interactions going on, and then move on. So one of the future studies obviously expand the study site, but just wanted to give you some brief description about why we have chosen this study site. Again, there are a lot of things going on. So another thing is, where did you get the data? At that time when we started, we only had the access to the traffic.com. So that's where we got the speed and the volume and everything. And another big data set that we were able to kind of tie into our study, it was what we call RIMES. It's Regional Integrated Multimodal Information Sharing Database that the DVRPC, they have it. And then what it has is that whichever instant, like it was recorded to the PennDOT or the police, what they have is they have detailed features of each instant, meaning that when it started, when it ended, so basically it gives you the duration, as well as like longitude, latitude information. On top of that, what was the action? So, and then what was the result? And then what was the feature of it? Was it just like some roadway, like work, or like was it crash? Was it like some disabled vehicles or things like that? So these were really, that database was the one that we really look into it when we know for sure that it is not really recurrent congestion. Because AM peak and PM peak, more or less, we are expecting the delay. So this is the website where you can go. And then I know right now DVRPC, they're trying to update it. And this is kind of like interface where PennDOT and then DVRPC, as well as a lot of counties, they are referring to, and then for the incident management. And then out of that, what we did was, rather than looking at the whole 365 days, which is a huge amount of effort, we say that, okay, let's look at 1 week for each month for the year 2012. By the way, this research, we kind of started from the early part of this year. So that's what we said, okay, let's look into it, and then we can kind of like expand it later. But let's just start it and then see the pattern. So the analysis approach is basically, hey, let's get the data and then see the congestion period, and then any congestion factors that we can identify by tying into not only the roadway geometrics, but as well as RIMES data, and also spatial event schedule, which was in our study set, it was PPL, that league, the soccer league, as well as we went back to the weather data set as well. So, and then we try to correlate what would be the good mitigation technique for those congestion, looking at the PennDOT as well as DVRPC's operations plan. So that was where our step-by-step was. And to define the congestion, what we did was we looked at the Washington DOC, the 2012 congestion report. Not only that, also DVRPC, they have their task force, which is a corridor management process. And then during that task force meeting, we defined that, okay, congestion, let's define the period where at 70% below the posted speed limit. And in our data set, or in our case study, the I-95, they did have 55 mile per hour speed limit, posted speed limit. So whichever falls down 70% below that, that's when we define congestion period. We grab that period and then cross-checked with REMIS and then any other data set that are available. So in the end, what we found out was that pretty much as we expected, okay, well, AM peak as well as midday peak or PM peak, those peak periods, they were contributing a huge portion of the congested period in our study site. Not only that, there were instances here too, which include the crash or disabled vehicles or any police activity. And obviously, crash was the one that contributed a huge portion of the incident, not only because of the number of the frequencies, but as you may guess, it's because of the impact, the first impact, the second impact, and everything. So, and also the holidays too, because we did have Thanksgiving, we did have Christmas, we did have like Memorial Day, which again ties into the network where you're gonna go to the shore, and then that was the bridge where you have to use, and it's really congested. So these kind of things were embedded as well, and the weather too. Obviously, when I was here in California, like I thought that I took it for granted for the sunny days, but once I moved there, I think I really appreciate here the sunny day. And over there, you know, like when it rains, when it snows, obviously the crash frequency goes up. So anyway, just wanted to show like what were the factors that were actually contributing to the congestion that we identified. And the congestion pattern, definitely, like you can see that we tried to look at northbound and southbound, and then definitely the pattern was obviously during the peak hours, but at the same time, so recurring like congestions, but at the same time non-recurring, which refers to the instance or weather and things like that. Still, there were high correlation during the peak hours because it's the more vehicles you have, the more likelihood chance of like something happening, exposure, right? So it makes sense. So this is in terms of the time of the day, how was the delay, and in terms of the year, like throughout the month, what's gonna happen, and then like here May, you can say it's really huge. Well, again, it's because of the impact of the holiday, which was Memorial Day. It was not per se, that day was not included, but like, you know, like it's long weekend and then it starts from Thursday even. So that's where it's all reflected in here. June definitely because of a summer vacation, like trips. And as we move on, interestingly, December and November, it wasn't really congested, even though the Thanksgiving as well as Christmas was in there. So maybe people kind of spread out and then made their trip accordingly. So because we have a huge congested period, or like it shows a pattern there, it has a big factor, a big value. I just wanted to see what's going on in terms of the volume as well as the speed. And this is for 1 week. And as you can see, somehow in our area, it was the northbound that had congested pattern more frequently observed. So let's go back and then look at the volume then. Did we have actually the northbound traffic volume higher than the southbound? And the answer was no. So that kind of like then makes you wonder what's going on. Because usually we know that the higher the volume it is, the more likelihood you will get the crash probability, which could be tying to the congestion. So here it says that, okay, well, traffic volume, the throughput, it's southbound that has higher. So what's going on with the northbound? There gotta be something going on. And then this one is one of the days where it was really bad, the northbound. So we looked at through one more time. So is there any tie into with the geometric features? And the answer is yes. And then that's exactly actually, no, we knew that. We knew what the result will look like pretty much, and we were happy that the result kind of reflected our expectation. And the reason is because Route 322, when it ties into with the I-95, by the way, where it's really, it carries a lot of like heavy traffic, what happens is they merge from the left, and then there's another like merging ramp that comes in within less than like 0.18 mile. And what happens is a lot of people that are coming from here, they want to go through this 95 and then go down to the New Jersey. So there are a lot of weaving going on. So bottom line is, here, this interchange per se, or this intersection here, this area, you need to change 3 lanes to just go down to the Jersey. And you don't really have time because it's so close to each other. And PennDOT, they are aware of this. And that reflects that this congestion, it's not really to do with the volume or anything, but definitely it's geometric. And then another thing is here, there's a bridge, and they kind of blocks the side view because of the vertical curve going on through. So this part is actually coded into the PennDOT as well as DVRPC's plan to improve. So, and the reason why we thought that it will be a good tie-in is that to kind of support the program. And that's where I think our job as researcher or academic sector, we got to show from the different perspectives. So just wanted to show you what happens with the geometric features as well. And obviously, because you have to do a lot of lane change and then a lot of things going on, human factors like lane changing behavior ties into the crash, and definitely during our analysis, which was only 1 week per month for the year 2012, there were a total of 13 crashes that were identified by RIMES. Again, it's only for our study period. Okay. And then out of 13, 4 were during the peak periods. And then during the non-peak period, there were 9 crashes. And then the 5 of them didn't really cause congestion, meaning that it didn't really impact the overall traffic flow to drop down to the 70% below. But however, the rest 4, they did, and there was a huge impact. And so some of the remarks that we want to say here is that, okay, just by looking at, even though it's a small segment, and then we knew that it's not going to be a carbon copy of the national trend, but still, it does show some trend, which means that the AM peak, PM peak, those kind of bottleneck-like phenomena, it does have a huge impact. It does share a big pie chart of the overall traffic congestion. The next was traffic incidents. So in terms of percent-wise, ranking-wise, it does follow. So just say, okay, so something that we expected, but it's good to confirm. And some of the remarks is that DVRPC, our MPO, they do have transportation operations master plan. And then in there, we do have a lot of how to integrate the ITS infrastructure, as well as how to streamline, as well as make it smooth the incident management, especially focusing on the emergency services patrol, traffic management, information, traveler information, and transit management. So everything is spelled out, everything is laid out, everything is identified, but it's always good to have yet another support research, which was our job. And just to give you some idea, this is the PennDOT as well as DVRPC's adopted ITS transportation operation master plan. And here's the 95. And you can see that this is the red, meaning that actually this is ITS infrastructure vision. So we do have a lot of CCTV camera, not only that Bluetooth and then other cameras that are tied into the TMC. And then PennDOT, they want to make sure that everything is integrated with the county level as well, by categorizing what are the major corridors. And so just wanted to show you what their plan is, and it's ongoing. And at the same time, integrated corridor management plan, which in the end ties into the signal timing as well as ramp metering, all those control strategies that we're familiar with. And definitely 95 is one of the major corridors that they're working on. Not only because it is important in the Philadelphia area, but again, it goes to the all the other states. And then I know we do have some other presenters from Maryland, and I know that they probably share the same idea, how 95 is really important. So this is DVRPC and PennDOT, their operations master plan. Now, what's our next step? We do admit that we only did really small segment. And that's one of the reasons was because at that time, we didn't really have access to the database which I'm sure that you'll be hearing a lot the rest of the session, which is really a powerful database. So hopefully, like with the access granted right now, we can do more research, meaning that comprehensive data set review with a crash data set that we got from the PANDAT, the whole data set, as well as VPP suite. And that will enable us to like expand the study site, which we are hoping to be I-95, the whole segment, the whole section. And again, the reason is because right now PANDAT, they do have a huge plan in upgrading the I-95 corridor. And we need to kind of like work together, and then that's our role as academic sector to kind of show that, hey, you guys, whatever you're putting the money into it, it's really worth because of these congestion that we found. And so mitigation strategy evaluations should be on the simulation base. That's another area that we need to work on. And in the end, that ties into the active traffic management, which is a big, like, hot topic these days. And again, I'm from academic sector, and then I do have a lot of students, and then what they want to do is they don't want to stay in the classroom. They just want to go out. And then this collaboration with DVRPC, as well as PANDAT, and that really gives them a really good incentive to kind of see that, hey, I want to be a transportation engineer. So my presentation today was more or less focused on the collaboration, as well as like some of the small findings that we found out. Thank you.
Thank you, Seri. Let's stay here for a second. Questions? Pat?
Since we are in a visualization symposium, would you include some of the visualization capability in your future direction?
Yeah, because like in the end, the VPP suite as well as the Ritus that we kind of cross-checked all our like dates where it's whatchamacallit, really congested and everything, and then we plot out congestion map and things like that. But I thought today what I wanted to focus more on is this is our base study, and then we'll move on for that part. Yeah.
Charles?
Sure. I'm kind of curious, when you were coming up with your causes of congestion,
Yeah.
kind of your pie chart, if you were to run into a situation, say you had like an incident in a work zone during the rain, how would you code that up on that pie chart?
Okay, well, that's what my student actually asked me. What am I supposed to do? That's where I think engineering judgment should go in. At the same time, like, let's look at what was the primary factor, because we do have when we look at the weather data, we know when it started raining, even though it's not really accurate. But then we do know what was the crash. And then, so what we had to do was that, okay, what nature of the crash was it? And if it were in a sunny day, would we have impact like this long? So I had to weigh a lot. And then like whatever it kind of stands out, hey, it's because of the rain, it was really huge impact, and we tried to categorize as weather. Now, when there was already work zone, we know that it would have slowed down the traffic. But then if we were not raining, but still work zone, and still it was above 70%, that means work zone has nothing to do with it. So like that was kind of like not really trial and error, but elimination process.
One more question?
Yes.
Can you go back to your pie chart
Yeah.
where you have the factor?
This one?
You have AMP, PMP as a contributing factor.
Yeah.
Don't you have the 7 factor that contribute to the peak instead of consider AMP as a factor?
Well, it was.
Tracking that as a capacity?
The reason is because in the end, we wanted to cross-check apple-to-apple comparison with the nationwide trend. And then that bottleneck is actually all geometric as well as the time of the day that was there.